Kakoens Perspective.
Thud thud, thud thud, thud thud, thud thud. Is the sound my feet make as I walk through the hall in the sorcerer's ship. My feet are soaked in boat shoes, like those I've had to wear whenever sailing down the Krak by ship to visit our eastern vassals, that allow me to avoid damaging the deck. They're made of a durable, squashy substance, unlike any I've ever encountered. However, what they're made of is far less impactful than how they were made. The day I woke up after my battle with the wielders of the burning weapons, I was shown to a cubic cavity in a wall. They reassured me as they shone sheets of red light over my feet. Several of them communicated in tongues that sounded nothing alike, but nonetheless seemed to be easily mutually understood, while one worked on a glowing panel with her clawless, too-many-fingered hand. After a few minutes, the cavity buzzed to life, and spun these foot sheaths into existence from nothing. They were handed to me, and with slight hesitation, I began to put them on. The most hilarious part of that was how fascinated they seemed to be by my contorting my hind legs forward to be able to reach my back feet, as if they hadn't just casually used magic that altered reality itself in front of me. I've been confined aboard for days now. I really wish I could ask them to take me home, but, well... Come, come, come! Beams the one called Yasmin, beckoning me to follow her. She's certainly the one who's managed to learn the most of my language, and it is extremely impressive that she's managed to get as far as she has in the time she's been trying, but she still speaks like a small infant. Are we going to be seeing my brain again today, Yasmin? I ask dryly, referring to their process of attaching small devices to my head, then having me describe pictures they show me, which she initially expressed as "for see head meat," until I suggested the word brain to her. Brain scene finish. Today, talk you, she jabbers happily. I don't understand, but I'm sure I'll see when I get there. These foreigner sorcerers have treated me extremely gently and kindly, considering that they are effectively holding me prisoner. I have been plentifully fed and watered, even if none of the cooked meat they have offered me has been of any kind I can identify. Yasmin stops by the door to the communal room and turns to me, smiling. Stand. She means stop or hold on a moment, I can infer. The door opens. I'm greeted by the sight of 6 vermin, all looking in my direction and embracing a large dark-furred dozing predator, clearly having heard me coming. The fluffy does not turn its enormous head to look to me, but the vermin all pull back their lips to snarl aggressively. Mrakna, grief lo tem mo yo wing. Mrakna, says Yasmin with the tone of a male, chastising nursery children. The vermin close their lips but continue to scowl at me. Victor, she says, effortlessly switching languages as she turns her attention to the tall, bulky, copper-headed one, locked in a serenal embrace with his comrade with blue skin and white hair. It's time. We need to meet the others. Scansy has the translator ready. The copper-headed one purses his lips and presses them briefly against the other's cheek as he gets up. He comes to where we are in the hall and wordlessly begins walking. Yasmin smiles back at me and beckons me to follow. The pair of Terrans, as Yasmin tells me her category of foreigner are called, lead me through the halls of the magical metal ship that sails on the night sky like water. We're headed to the room where Yasmin and I speak. Victor is not normally with us for those sessions, but based on what she said earlier, it seems like they've got what they needed from their brain seeing. So we must be doing something else today? We arrive, and as the door opens, I can see the room more crowded than in any prior session. The seat designed to support my underside is in its normal place against the table. Sat directly across from there is Lamoyakshi, the woman that backed down the warriors who came to engage me on the day I woke up. Next to her is the much taller man, almost as tall as I am when standing, who has large orange eyes and lacks a nose. I don't know what his kind are called. Also, at the table are the very short, very broad, very deep-chested Terran with the woolly orange hair, the black-haired one with a white streak and purple eyes, the plump one with the short hair and grey eyes, and the much smaller ones whose body shape is somewhat reminiscent of long-legged dragon birds, but other than that I have no analogue for what to call their kind. Not at the table is Scanzi, holding a small box. She is the only one I've seen on this ship who, like me, apparently has her bones on the outside, encasing and armoring her flesh, as opposed to the vertebral arrangement shared by the Terrans and the vermin, or the boneless arrangement of the tentacled ones, and the one made of blue ooze. That being said, other than arthropodality, she and I have very little in common. Her body is a completely different shape to mine, with 4 arms, 2 main legs, and her hind body stretched out into a long tail, suspended from the floor by numerous tiny legs. Whatever her armor is made of, and however much its colors may resemble mine, it is clearly not any great protection to her, as it flexes and warps with her movement. Most of all, the thing that sets us apart is that she just seems so nervous all the time, hunched over with her normal except for their number arms in front of her chest, twitching and swishing those long whiskers on top of her head all around. It's all I can do not to shout at her to be a woman already. If one of my younger half-sisters entered the barracks with such a manner, I would definitely be telling our broodfather that she was unsuited to soldiery, and a place ought to be found for her elsewhere. Including myself and the 2 others who just arrived, Terrans make up just over half of the people in the room. They are definitely the single greatest minority aboard, with no kind having anything like a majority, and just from observing the respect and deference they seem to command among the other kinds, I think it's safe to assume that the Terrans are atop this strange, foreign hierarchy. I take my seat, looking quizzically around. Yasmin sits beside me. Victor remains standing by the door. All eyes are on me. Lamoyakshi turns to Scanzi and smiles. De como la trocmo, si kunzi. In words I have no hope of understanding. The girl steps forward, clearly as nervous to approach as she was every time she put the devices to see my brain on me. Rather than attaching anything to my head, she simply lays the box onto the table in front of me. Smiling toothlessly at Scanzi again, Lamoyeshke chuckles. Galta kyota panyen na kyoka drelnat kok, nailinyanak. Ritken imblinvink, buzzes the nervous woman apologetically before scuttling from the room, increasing the Terran majority by her absence. With her gone, all eyes return to me. Lamoyeshke gestures from me to the box. I pick it up and, fumbling slightly, since it was clearly designed for nimbler hands, open it. Inside is a tiny, flat circle of metal. I recognize it as the same kind that everyone aboard, with the sole exception of Yasmin, wears on their temples. I reach inside and grip it between 2 claws, bringing it up to my face to examine it. They're giving me this? Why? What does it do? What is it for? Is it safe? The vermin started wearing them too a few days ago. I haven't noticed any change. Deciding to trust it, I reach to place it against my head. It falls to the floor.
Kenyo wasa halsudo iyo yeso, Yasmin.
Smiles the grey-eyed one to Yasmin. She fetches the disc from the ground and stands to bring it back to the side of my forehead.
Care. Movement,
she says, her tone that of a warning. Whatever she's warning me about, she decides to demonstrate by shuddering like she's out in a blizzard for a moment. Is she trying to tell me it feels cold? Deftly, she places the not particularly cold device against my temple and activates it. Immediately, my upper body collapses against the heavy table, shunting it a hand's length away as I convulse.
Kakoen, are you alright? Can you understand me?
Comes a familiar voice, speaking, suddenly comprehensible words at me from across the table. Instantly, my head whips up in shock, despite my yet-to-subside shivers. I stare into the pair of elliptical eyes, white with brown rings encircling black points. There is no doubt that Lamoyeshki is the one who just spoke, but you could speak my language this whole time? I demand, enraged that I've been needlessly forced to barely communicate for the whole time since I awoke. She closes her eyes and wags her face back and forth, smiling.
No, ma'am. I cannot speak your language and never could, but thanks to the device we just gave you, you should be hearing your language right now, or understanding your language at least.
Narrowing all 8 eyes at the woman, I tap a claw against the metal disc and ask, "This thing lets one hear any language as one's own?"
Within certain limitations, yes.
She smiles. Certain limitations that you needed to spend days looking at my brain while I spoke to circumvent?
Exactly.
She beams with the encouraging tone of a nursery attendant male, coddling a child who's just shown some glimmer of intellect.
So, she continues, I know you will have seen everyone here before, but now we can finally understand each other. I think it might be best if we start by introducing ourselves. We can go first, or you can, whichever you prefer.
She's offering me the choice of whether to adopt humility or arrogance. A test? I decide that I had better be humble with these people, so much more manifestly powerful than mine. Please introduce yourselves first. She smiles and wobbles her face up and down this time. She's pleased.
My name is Ambassador Lamo Krenyesh, and this,
she gestures to the large, noseless man, is my untranslatable term, husband, nearest approx, brute husband,
Ambassador Nungong Ong. She
indicates the purple-eyed woman,
is untranslatable title, Doctor, meaning learned one, Emiko Smiles Miyazaki, Expedition Coordinator, and her bodyguard, Miss Fran Gimli Hunter. She gestures to the plump grey-eyed woman, holding a glowing panel and a thin implement in her hands, who smiles and waves, is Dr. J. Pete Stone, our untranslatable term, sociologist, meaning one who studies societies. She points out one of the beaked women, is Captain Thaqual, 27th daughter of High Spire Peak, and the owner and operator of the ship we're aboard. She, gesturing the other, is Waquark, 15th daughter of High Spire Peak, the expedition's compliance officer, here to make sure everything is above board. She points over to the large Terran man standing by the door, is Mr. Victor Cuddles Taylor, Chief Security Specialist. He's in charge of safeguarding everyone's well-being aboard.
He raises one hand from his arms, crossed at his chest, but otherwise does not react. I was right then that he is, in fact, a man and a warrior of some kind. The foreigners have strange customs.
And then, of course, beside you is Dr. Yasmin Goldtongue Soltani, the expedition's untranslatable term, linguist, meaning one who studies languages, whom you'll know from your sessions with her and Scritches.
With all of them introduced, I take my cue. My name is General Kakoen of the Quakakan realm, daughter of Brood King Ukhog of the Quakakan realm, and General Kovak of the Wokhashan realm. Do you consider me to be your prisoner?
We do not,
responds Lamo kindly.
I apologize for your prolonged stay and our inability to receive your consent to be here. If you say the word, we will take you home immediately. But I will personally like to request that you talk with us first.
I agree. I have many questions for you, I answer straight away. Smiling encouragingly, the woman invites.
Ask!
Extending her arms as if to indicate that she considers nothing to be off limits. I spend a while prioritizing my queries before deciding on my most burning one. Have you come here from the warm lands? Her eyebrows dance for a few moments before rising up her forehead. Her mouth hangs open in apparent surprise as she answers,
Based on the gist of that concept that my translator has just given me, I'm going to quite firmly say no, we are not. Though I think you should talk to Doctors Morningstar and Tarn about these warm lands. I'm sure they will be very interested.
If you are not from the warm lands, where have you come from? She thinks for a moment before responding.
Are you aware that your son is a star?
Of course, I scoff.
Good, she smiles. That saves time. We are from other worlds, around other stars, distances away from yours that is not really possible for anyone to truly grasp the sheer scale of, but suffice it to say, very, 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 very far away.
So, why have you come here? I ask, dreading the answers I might receive.
Well,
she extends her 5-fingered palms across the table.
We came here for you, of course.
My worst fear realized, I ask, You seek to conquer my people? I assure you, we have nothing you would value. If you seek to make slaves of us...
No.
Lamo interrupts hurriedly, while the stone woman scrabbles her stylus against the panel she holds.
We aren't here to conquer you, enslave you, or extract any wealth from you. We're here to befriend you.
I spend some long moments processing that before asking, So, when you said you and your brood husband were ambassadors, you meant to us? She shrugs her shoulders.
If you'll have us, yes.
I narrow my eyes, contemplating. And if we refuse, what then? Bobbing her head slowly up and down, she answers,
If your people want nothing to do with us, we will leave you completely alone. There is no compulsion here, but...
But? I ask, my heart in my throat.
Well, it's just... Your situation with the Twig is completely unprecedented.
I'm sorry, I ask, extremely confused. A situation with the what? Mirroring my puzzlement, she answers,
The Twig, the other sapient species on your planet, the ones against whom you fought the battle, in which you were so injured that we needed to bring you aboard for medical treatment.
Realization dawning, I ask, You mean the vermin? There is a brief instant of every eye in the room widening slightly, and every torso leaning away from me a minuscule amount in clear stunned silence, concluded by the grey-eyed one leaning over her glowing tile and feverishly scrolling into it with the device in her other hand. Hesitates Lamo. The Twig is their name for themselves. Not really having the patience to be told that I need to refer to the vermin politely, as it seems like they're trying to imply, I bypass the issue, asking, "What's so unusual about us and them, and why does that have a bearing on my people's ability to refuse your friendship?"
Well, it's just that there are only 4 known, genuine instances of multiple, intelligent societal species naturally arising on the same planet.
She turns to the orange-haired woman.
If you look at Miss Hunter here, you can see that she looks quite different to me, Dr. Miyazaki, Dr. Soltani, and Mr. Taylor, right?
I examine the woman who is failing to meet my eyes, her cheeks turning red. "I can," I state.
Well, her ancestors and ours diverged between 600,000 to 800,000 years ago. But if you look at Dr. Stone...
The grey-eyed woman pauses from her scratching to look up at me and give a cheerful wave.
One of her parents was a sapiens, like us, and the other was from a different lineage, as far from ours as is Miss Hunter's. It isn't uncommon to hear people refer to there being different species of human, but technically that's not correct. The fact that we can still interbreed with one another means that our different lineages are really only subspecies of human. 3 of the 4 genuine multi-species planets have situations much like ours, only slightly more extreme, where some ancestral population of proto-sentients became split apart and isolated from each other for long enough that, when reunited, they were no longer able to interbreed. But the different species still easily recognize the others as people. There's only one instance of 2 species both evolving sentience in parallel, completely independent of one another, on the same world, the way that you and the Twig have. The Jol and the Mavam of Joltom Pamvak in the Barb-Jord system.
Struggling to understand, I point out, "All right, then it isn't unprecedented, is it?" Wagging her face from side to side, she responds,
"The difference is, when it came to their first contact, even though so different from one another, they were already fully integrated into a mixed-species society. They weren't at war with one another."
I scoff. "We're not at war with each other."
"That weren't how it looked to me,"
speaks the red-headed man, leaning on the wall by the door, sneering slightly.
"Don't seem to be how they see it, neither." "Yes, thank you, Mr. Taylor,"
chastises Lamo, with a pointed tone before turning her attention back to me.
"Regardless of what we call it, I don't think you can deny that your people seem to be highly adverse to one another. And that's a problem. You see, if they say they want contact and you say you don't, or vice versa, obviously one party is going to be disappointed by whatever we do in that scenario. And because this has never happened before, we aren't quite sure what to do about it."
"You would give priority to the wishes of vermin over those of my people?" I ask, disgusted. The woman looks down and tenses her fingers, clearly thinking about the most diplomatic way to phrase her answer.
"Ideally, no. Ideally, from our perspective, both of your peoples would wish for contact with us. If both of you reject our overtures, that will be immensely disappointing to us, but it will at least make things simpler. The Twig, however, seem to be quite enthusiastically in favor of opening a dialogue with the Galactic Union, our polity, which puts us in an uncomfortable position regarding your overlapping sovereignties. We do not wish to be coming and going from this planet to conduct our business with the Twig in violation of your people's wishes."
I scowl. So what do you suggest?
She smiles. I would suggest peace talks. Twig representatives and representatives of your side meeting and talking out your differences. I would suggest holding these peace talks here, aboard this ship, since it's a neutral location with no pre-existing significance to either side, and we, as your hosts, will act as disinterested third-party mediators. Our only interests are peace between you and contact with both of you. We have no reason to favor one side over the other.
I gesture firmly in the negative and answer, I could not agree to such on my own authority. Even my broodfather would not be free to undertake what you have suggested without consulting his vassals. She makes a conceding gesture.
Of course. But do you foresee this being something your father and his vassals might be willing to entertain?
Choosing my words carefully, I answer, that rather depends.
Depends on what? She asks.
On what exactly my people stand to gain and lose by opening contact with you and your galactic union. Why do you consider it worth your while to come here to us when you already have access to such power as I have seen while aboard? She sways her face up and down.
Quite reasonable. You wish to know more about us?
I do, I answer.
All right then. Where to start?